You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen King here on Talkin Shop, here on The Experience, our weekly show where we like to get you the very best in talent out there that's working in comic books, graphic novels, and kind of letting you know what is coming this week or very soon so that you can add it to your polls or go and back it if it's being crowdfunded. Yeah, this is for all the cool kids today. We've got 2 interviews back to back. We're going to be talking to Eric Palicki for the first half an hour and then Rodney Barnes. So stick around, share with your friends so they can be in the room and get to hear all this cool stuff. And we'll see you back right after this. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I am doing what I'm hoping everyone else is doing right now. It's just a share. Also a reminder that subscribing is really awesome because then you will never, ever miss a show because you'll get notification from us no matter which platform you are watching from. Primarily YouTube, but we are also live right now on Facebook and Twitch. I think Twitter too. And soon Instagram. They'll get all their stuff together and we'll be able to talk to you on that platform as well. I see that Cool Gamer is already in the room. Just a reminder, this is a completely interactive interview process. So I have questions that I want to ask, but if you have a burning question that you would like to ask, feel free to type it into the chat and I will get to it. We'll pop it up when it fits into the conversation. Yeah, go subscribe to the Instagram because I think that is numbers based to allow us to have the functionality to go live there. So we're really close. It won't take very many. So if you get you and a couple friends to go do that, that would be the best. It's just the_EXP1, I think, over on that side. Hello, Lyle Hobson. I'm so glad to see you. All right, let's get into it. Hopefully I can get to talk to Eric Palicki right now. Yes.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I assume you can hear me.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, great.
It's been a long time since I've gotten to talk to you. I feel like maybe New York Comic Con was the last time I got to see you in person.
Yeah, but probably New York Comic Con 2021.
Yep.
So it's been a while. How have you been?
Yeah. I've been doing well. I'm excited because comic books seem like they're kind of like the paper shortage isn't affecting things as much anymore, and publishers are figuring out their schedule, and so it's very exciting that we're getting back to like we know when books are coming out and they are coming out then, and it's not the Wild West so much. Is it working out for you? Are you seeing that kind of stuff get more normalized again?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from any of the publishers that I work with directly, and we will get into the Kickstarter I'm currently running. I assume today, but I already ordered the books for the fulfillment, and there's no delays due to paper shortages this time around. The last time I ran a Kickstarter, I had some issues, but this one looks like it's smooth sailing. So yeah, it seems like everything is back on track.
That's awesome. So our viewership might not know that. I mean, it really was not something that was just kind of a made up crisis. There really was kind of a ongoing war to kind of like claim what paper was available or inbound on big container ships that people were kind of, what I call bowing out for paper. And there were shortages for weird things like inks. Like you might have seen during like maybe last year that the inks for some of your comic books seemed like they were a little bit different saturation or whatever. That was really because there wasn't the one that they usually use. So they were just kind of using what they could get a hold of. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how history looks at books that were printed during last year's kind of like interestingness where people were using different cover weights than they ever did before. And
Yeah, I was just bagging some comics that came out in 2022, some of my books, and was really surprised by how thin they feel. And I'm
Mhm.
sure it was just due to the paper choice.
Yeah, I can remember having discussions with publishers and be like, what else could you print comics on that would still be comic book-esque, but meaning you weren't competing for the exact same paperweight as everybody else? We never could figure it out. I was like, ooh, let's just do all acetate.
Go back to the prehistoric man and just paint everything on cave walls.
That'd be awesome. Someone to print on hemp. See, that would have worked. I don't think there's a lot of competition for hemp sheets for printing.
Well,
So.
I live in Washington State, and there's a lot of competition for hemp, but that's a difference.
For different things, yeah.
Right.
It's like people are using it for everything. Clothes. It's not just a rope or for recreation anymore. All right. So for everybody that's not familiar with Eric's work, you might have seen his stuff first, maybe if you were a Scout fan, looking at Atlantis Isn't Built for Tourists, which was an amazing storyline, or recently at Ahoy for Blacksmith. For people that are not familiar with those storylines, you want to give them just a short synopsis so they can get them all teased up, like they can go hunt it down at the comic shop?
Sure. And both of those books are great examples of my catalog, in that I worked with the same artist, Wendell Cavalcanti, who is someone that I have known for 15 years, since I was just doing little 4-page stories and putting them up on Facebook and MySpace and my own personal website way back in the dark ages of digital comics. So we've been friends and collaborators forever, and he's fantastic. And I hope that I can continue to work with him. I hope that we can establish that Brubaker Phillips kind of relationship where we're always working on something together.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists, it is kind of a mashup of like a Cormac McCarthy modern set Western with Lovecraftian horror about a stranger who wanders into a small town, discovers that the town is not what it seems, but neither is he. So it kind of this unraveling mystery of monsters with a big action component at the end. If you like Sergio Leone Westerns, or the same sort of stranger comes to town story, there's a little of that, plus of course big monsters in it. And then when you go over to Ahoy, of course, known for their sort of humorous publications, and I have the dubious distinction of doing the least funny of all their books, in Blacksmith, which is the story of a private investigator who happens to be a werewolf, and she had when we meet Strummer at the start of the story, she has kind of turned her back on that supernatural lifestyle and where she came from, and a case falls into her lap that pulls her back in, and then kind of reveals again this sort of secret supernatural underbelly to Los Angeles and to the world at large, that the mundane humanity doesn't know exists, and then her just kind of having to grapple with not only the case but her place in the world, being kind of both the supernatural world and the mundane reality that we know and love. It was a very well received book, and I'm pretty excited to announce that we had previously announced that there was a volume 2 coming, but the first issue will be out in June of Blacksmith volume 2.
Oh wow, that's
something.
awesome.
Yeah, so that should be in next month's previews. I don't remember the cadence, if it's going to be March or April's previews, but that should be available pretty soon for pre-order.
So for both of those series, if they sound interesting to you guys, they should be pretty easy to track down at your local comic shop. They're both really great series, so they're likely to have carried them. But even if they didn't, here's a good opportunity for you to maybe poke your LCS and have them be a little bit brave about trying out some more independent creation or creative work. So maybe they'll start carrying more of it in the future. Should be awesome. So Eric, you mentioned that you had previously posted little digital works. Is that really how you got started doing comic form things?
Yeah, I was always told in all of the forums that I visited and whenever I would communicate with creators at conventions looking for advice on how to break in, they always told you to start small. Your first project out of the gate should never be your Watchmen, right? It shouldn't be this, multi-year epic, hundreds and hundreds of pages that you can't anticipate a publisher taking a risk on a 12 or 24 or an ongoing series out of the gate. So I took that advice to heart and I started writing these little 4-page stories. The other part of it is that I knew that in order to get an artist of a professional caliber, I was going to have to pay them something. And while, again, multi-year epic was not in my budget, I could scrape together enough money to pay an artist's page rate for a 4-page story. So I created these little 4-page stories about a teenage hit woman. The stories were called The Undertaker's Daughter. Wendell came on board. I think we did 5 or 6 little 4-page stories, all following this little Rose Kincaid, who was this 15-year-old daughter of an undertaker, and her adventures as she killed generally bad people. So it was very much a thing that I was interested in 15 years ago. I don't know that those are stories that will ever see the light of day again, but I'm still proud of where I came from and happy with how they turned out. And that segued into larger and larger projects. And eventually I was doing work for Ahoy and Scout and some other medium and larger presses. So here we are.
So that obviously was during a time way before things like Patreon or any of the other subscription-based services. So you just put them out to the world for free?
I did. I had a friend who worked at CopyMax, the copy center inside Office Max and Office Depot.
That is the best friend to have.
It is a very good friend to have if you're trying to break into comics, because he, in exchange for a few lunches, would after hours print up some little ash can size books that I could sell for a couple of bucks at a convention. Or more often than not, I gave them away to prospective editors or collaborators just to show them what I was capable of doing. But yeah, absolutely. If you can find a friend who works in at Kinko's, definitely do that.
It's 100% true. And if you don't have a friend there, just be super sweet to their overnight crew, because back in the day, those places were open 24 hours a day. So if you came in after they were done with all the big projects they were working on, you could talk them into letting you use the machines and getting the flat page rate if you just did it yourself.
Yes. I mean, even just figuring out how to position pages for like little 8-page stories, position the pages and print them myself, and then you can sweet talk someone at Kinko's into binding them for you. That's right. Saddle stitching them for free. It was.
I just was happy for the use of their giant stapler that could reach to the middle of a book.
Reach to the middle of an 11 by 17. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Ed Weird, I just want to say hi. We've got some folks on and watching. Hey, Lyle. Yeah, vellum paper would be a really interesting comic book. You'd have to be very careful with it, I think. It would be a cool feel, though. Like, especially if you're doing something that was made to look real old, right? That would be kind of a cool thing. All right, so let's talk about Orphans, because I was super happy that we're going to do this interview, because I don't know that I would have necessarily caught this in time. I think I'd seen you post about it, but we're kind of short timing it for the opportunity to grab up these issues, especially considering you've done this as a very unique crowdfund where it is not so much the amount of money you're trying to raise, but you're only making available 100 copies of Orphans. How did you decide to do that?
So a little backstory on Orphans. Orphans is when I was talking about The Undertaker's Daughter, and starting small. Orphans was my first attempt to do a long form comic series. It was a 5-issue, or the equivalent of 5 issues. It was all digital, so it doesn't necessarily feel like issues, although it was written that way. It was my first attempt to do a longer form story like that. It was a Kickstarter that I ran back in 2012, finally able to fulfill in 2013. So now we're at the 10th anniversary. It was a project I did with a Serbian artist named Branko Jovanovic, and he went on to do Solar Flare at Scout, which is that's James's book. It's kind of the flagship sort of Scout title, or the first one of the first titles that got some notoriety there. And so he and I had worked together and did this book, and I ran a Kickstarter that was successful, like I said, a decade ago. So all of the work was done on the book. After I finished the Kickstarter, I put it up on Comixology through their Submit program. And I'm sure everyone is aware that Comixology is going through some hard times right now. Amazon has kind of gutted it and stripped it for parts. And so I was kind of, nostalgic for the book, kind of lamenting the direction that Comixology seems to be going at the moment. And while I know the relationship between digital first and comics brick and mortar stores can be somewhat fraught, as a creator, it was very important because it was an opportunity for me to get my work out there and have the book available to people without a publisher. And it did open up some doors for me to then end up working for some publishers that were able to take on it and produce my work in the physical space. But when while I was thinking about Orphans, Kickstarter reached out to all of its past creators. Every January they do something called Make 100, which is an initiative they do where they encourage creators to do a small campaign where the end result is 100 of something. It can be several different things that equal up to 100, or it can be just one reward that you only offer 100 of. And because Orphans is complete, it seemed like, well, if this is no longer available on Comixology, I have long since exhausted my print run of the original Kickstarter editions. Why not offer this up one more time? All I have to do is just do a once over on the art to make sure that the file is still in one piece, and I can offer it as kind of a cool anniversary edition. 100 copies. We can number them. I can sign them. I have a cover that's never before seen print from Joe Mulvey, who's done a lot of work with Comics Tribe, and is currently, had a book come out through Aftershock called The Last Ride of Pillar and Pride most recently. And he's also just a fantastic friend of mine, and has been such a big cheerleader for me all along. So I really wanted to have this cover out in the world since it's been sitting on a hard drive for 10 years now. So we're offering 100 copies of Orphans with a potential hardcover if we reach all of our stretch goals. This is probably the last time that this particular story will be available in print in the form that it's in. I would really like to revisit these characters and these themes, but I think I'm a more mature writer than I was a decade ago. So if these characters are ever seen again after this Kickstarter campaign, it will be in a different form.
Yeah, I read the synopsis and it looks like it deals with some pretty tough things. It doesn't seem like it's just ooh, fighty shooty. Tell the story.
Sure, it's the first thing that I think maybe the only thing that I've done that's got a superhero bent to it. And I think the kind of the elevator pitch is, what if a super soldier like Captain America had to give up being a soldier, so he reinvented himself as Robin Hood? It's about a failed super soldier named Alexis Quinn, who realizes that all of this technology, all of these wonderful advancements that made his existence possible would be better served doing anything but building more weapons. You know, the path to scientific advancement is so often, let's figure out how we can use this to kill people and break things. And Quinn's kind of mission statement is, okay, well, what if we didn't? So what he does is he goes out and he tries to steal all of these new technological advancements that are being used for weapons manufacturing and repurposing them for the greater good. And of course, that's going to draw the ire of a lot of very powerful people. And that's where our story comes in. But he kind of has a team of similarly like-minded superhumans and regular humans. You know, there's obviously your guy in a chair, like there always is, and a number of other operatives that help him in the story. And the structure, like I said, it was written in issue form. This was kind of also my love letter to Planetary and Global Frequency, both of which had recently wrapped up at the time I was creating this 10 years ago, and which were two of the sort of seminal series in my development as a writer. So I kind of wanted to do that individual issue done in one feel for each chapter. So you get that even though they kind of build to a bigger story.
So I think that this is maybe it's either Jay asking or Kyle. Did you rework any more than just like looking at the files to making sure they weren't corrupted? Did you change anything that it's from the original printing?
So I did not. Well, I did remove the original introduction, added a new afterword. The art and lettering are as is. And part of that is because the original raw files were lost. The raw lettering files were lost due to a computer crash way back in 2015, unfortunately, which is unfortunate. But I think it's kind of cool because it's kind of an artifact of my skills as a writer at the time in which the book was created. So again, I did go back and forth on whether I was just going to let this book disappear off into the ether for all time, or just make it available one more time, which is why this limited edition kind of made sense.
This is great because it allows people that didn't get to enjoy it first time around to grab up a pretty rare copy. If there's only 100 of them that are going to be out there, very special. And for people that already have a copy of the original, then they can just enjoy supporting you, which is super nice. Yeah. And while the reward itself is limited to 100 copies, some of the add-ons, I was able to kind of put some of my other work, including Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists, make that available as an add-on. Manticore, which is another Kickstarter project that was kind of my pandemic project from 2 years ago, is available as an add-on. There's a digital comics bundle where you can catch up on a lot of my independent work. So this will give you kind of a cool spectrum of the full scope of my work from when I did Orphans all the way up to the work that I'm doing now. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, you mentioned that Blacksmith, the second series, is in works and going to release, assuming June, if nothing else goes crazy. Is there anything else that you're allowed to talk about that you're excited about you're working on right now?
Those are the two things that I'm working on right now. I've also wrapped a book in 2022. My years are off. I guess we're in 2023 now. I wrapped a book last year called Ninja Kaidan from a smaller press publisher called Black Box.
I should have pulled that out. Dadgummit.
And I am working on a second volume of that as well. So,
that's wonderful.
And then hopefully, there's always discussions to be had. The game of comics is so often, what are you pitching next? So I'm working on 5 or 6 different pitches with different collaborators that I'm really excited about. having ongoing conversations with publishers. I would like to do more anthology work, having edited 5 anthologies now for A Wave Blue World. Been nominated for 3 Ringo Awards for those. Would really like to dip my toe back into editing for on an anthology level, and there are discussions about doing that again as well.
So do you feel like it is fairly normal for creators to not just stick at one company, but to have works at lots of different ones? Is that the kind of the norm?
Yes. Yeah. Once you get to, until you get to the very top echelons of the industry where folks are able to sort of maneuver for an exclusive contract at one of the big 2, which, is great because health insurance, but also great for the fact that the pitch, the assembly of the pitch and going out and talking to editors can sometimes feel like a grind, and it doesn't always feel like writing. It feels like a different job sometimes.
I can imagine that when you've got such a big universe that you're trying to fit your story into, it's probably a lot easier if the universe is yours. You can do whatever you want.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I would love to do Blacksmith at Ahoy forever. So hopefully Volume 2 is met with the similar success that Volume 1 did. I think the 2 volumes really will really inform each other, is the word I was thinking of. So I really hope that it catches on.
Perfect. All right, for everybody that is watching, where is the right place that you feel for people to follow you on social media to be kept up with all of the goings on in your creative life?
Sure. I spend entirely too much time on Twitter at Eric Palicki. I'm also on Instagram with the same handle at Eric Palicki. And then I have a website, ericpalicki.com. And I do have a web store on the website that has sort of lies fallow right now, but I will get more stock up and running soon.
Perfect. We're also including in the chat for everybody the link to the Kickstarter. When I was on there earlier, about half of the available 100 were already claimed. So don't wait too long if you want to grab it up. And it's not an expensive thing to back. It's not going to cost you a paycheck or something. So you can totally jump in. What else am I thinking of? Yeah.
As of right,
so we had
49 out of 51. There's 51.
There you go.
Thank you. We've also hit the first 2 stretch goals. So in addition to the book, there will be a digital script book containing all of the original scripts for the series, which has been really fun for me to go back and again see my evolution as a writer and see the terrible mistakes that I made then that I would never make today, as well as a digital process book, which shows some unused art, some unused covers, the colorists. I'm actually going to be including a script for an unused 8-page Orphans story that never got off the ground. Some art from a previous attempt to pitch a similar story. So it'll be a really kind of a cool digital package for anyone who backs the book.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like that kind of stuff. It's like getting a director commentary on a film.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for spending time with us. We always love having you on the show, and we're looking forward to the next release. We'll have you back on to talk about when Blacksmith's second series comes out, so everyone get hyped and put it in their polls. We appreciate you a lot.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much for having me. It's always great to talk to you, and I am free to come back anytime.
Yay! All right, everybody. Stick around. We've got Rodney Barnes coming up after the break. Support your LCS and get that stuff going on. Find that Kickstarter.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
Everybody, and welcome back to Talkin Shop. I just wanted to say hi to Preston and give him mad props. Preston is actually one of our subscriber members, always coming on and being encouraging to other people that are watching and the viewing and giving information in chats. He is truly and 100% exactly what we were envisioning when we built this community for comic books and other nerdy things. Like it's amazing to see. He's already given lots of information to Lyle, who is super excited about some of the books that we're going to be talking about with the creator we're going to bring up here in just a second. Just a reminder, if you are watching from Instagram, or if you want to watch from Instagram, or if you like Instagram, just go over there and follow us on Instagram. Once we get all of that stuff unlocked, we'll be live there all the time. We'd love to see you over there. We know you guys like your pictures, and we do too. All right, everybody, welcome to our show, our good friend, Rodney Barnes.
Hey, what's happening?
Ooh, I like your shirt.
Thank you.
That's a nice shirt.
I appreciate that. It's better than the one I had on a moment ago. So, yeah.
Do you totally change just for this?
I totally changed just for this, yes. I have so much respect for you. I said, you know what? I can't do this. Okay, I've got it.
Love.
Jen deserves better. Yes.
You obviously don't have the same like cold snap in LA as we have. Like we're down in
a little chilly. It's a little chilly. I've got the heat on, so yeah.
It's very smart.
Yeah.
Well, you have been super busy. Very, very busy. I follow you all the time on social media, and I just don't know. Do you get to sleep ever, or you just like cryogenically freeze yourself for an hour?
Not as much as I'd like to. I wish I rested more. But then again, when I try to rest, I think of all the things I feel guilty. I feel like I should be doing something. I feel lazy. I feel like, hey, there are books that could be written. There's something that could be done. So
do you find yourself just coming up with super awesome inspirations just as you're laying down?
I come up with, I don't know if they're awesome or super, but I come up with ideas throughout the day and I feel compelled to try to do them. That's the problem. If I could just let them just live and just exist and be thoughts, then I'd be good.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that's always been super interesting to me about your creativity is that you kind of live in two worlds, right? You do a lot of screenwriting and producing, which is, I feel like they're related to making comic books, but it feels like it's just such a different energy. And like you can be still and do comic book creating, right? But to produce and do those things is such an active thing. Like, how do you separate your day so that you have time for both things?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, there's an active part of producing television that requires you to be where the producing of the television needs to happen. That part means there's no comic booking happening at that time. But the writing is just the writing. That's really more of just a state of mind. That's really just carving out the time. I don't really differentiate, even though they're radically different things. I really don't process them differently. I look at it all as story, and that
Mhm.
keeps me sane, as sane as I guess, for being insane. But yeah.
Do you have like a special place in your house, or do you go and sit at coffee shops? Do you have a special like a place that's like, all right,
No,
I'm writing now?
coffee shop. This office I write in a lot. I try to find little offices or rooms to do what I do. It's hard for me to focus. I have my own sort of anxiety that lives with me and walks with me, where I'm constantly judging myself, and imposter syndrome and all of that stuff that a lot of people wrestle with. I wrestle with it as well. And so to sort of tune out all of that stuff, I can't have other stuff happening too. So I can't go to Starbucks and sit down amongst people and be amongst people. I need semi-silence. I mean, I will break up music, or I know Stephen King says this is bad, but television sometimes.
Mhm.
I'll put a movie on that I won't pay attention to, but I have something to glance to from time to time. But yeah.
Do you think, okay, so this is just me speaking out loud, thinking about it, because I have a problem sleeping often because I have a creative mind. So I have a hard time getting it to be quiet. So
Mhm.
I'll sometimes put on TV in the background while I'm sleeping because I don't know, it does something in my brain that kind of cancels out all of the things that it's thinking about that I don't want to be thinking about.
Right.
So does that do it for you for TV? Like the TV's taking all of like other things like the bills and all the other things you're thinking about and be like, okay, that's going over there.
It's according to what I'm watching. If I'm watching something that's like the news or something like that, no. If it's a
Yeah.
narrative and it's a good one, then yeah. Um, and for that reason, I tend to watch the same things over and over and over again. Like I'll watch a movie. I've seen The Exorcist 1,000 times, and if it's on, I'll
Mhm.
watch it again. And I have go-to things that I go to when I'm dealing with insomnia, or just a restless mind, or
Mhm.
whatever. I have some go-tos that I'll go to go to.
Okay. I'm going to make guesses. Is it A, Forensic Files, or B, Ancient Aliens?
Forensic Files or hotel, perfect hotel fodder. Whenever I'm in a hotel, Forensic Files, I'm disappointed. I know it's in the C-SPAN. It's one of those C somethings. It's one of those news
Yep.
things, and they run all the time.
All
I
the
don't
time.
want I don't want the very scary people. I don't want any of the other ones that they do. I just want, and there's an original, the guy that does the original voice.
Yes,
Because they got a new guy that does like the new ones. I want the original guy with the gravelly voice.
me too.
It's the same thing with like the first 48. There's a guy, they replaced him for like a little while. I want my original guy, or it's not the same thing. I'm distracted because I want the other guy. But yeah, Forensic Files more so than Ancient Aliens.
Oh, yeah. All right, we could totally hang out.
Yeah.
So, producer says it's the HLN channel on everywhere
There
you
you
go,
go.
everywhere
Yes.
in the world.
Yeah, there you go. And it's on in my car sometimes too. If I have to drive someplace for over an hour and I don't want to listen to anything else, I'll put it on there and I'll listen to. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
that's
listen to
perfect.
it.
Kyle says, I think this is Kyle. I watched all of Winning Time while I was supposed to be building a website. I know what happened in Winning Time, but the site doesn't exist.
Okay.
So
So
it didn't work. Winning
yeah,
Time was more interesting, I'm guessing, for sure.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Winning Time, is my brain wrong in thinking that it is won awards?
We've won some awards. We've been nominated for some awards. The most important part is we're back for season 2, and hopefully this summer we just wrapped season 2, but we're in post right now and adding all the bells and whistles and putting everything together. So hopefully this summer we'll be ready to go.
Perfect. All right, I have one more non-comic question because it's just interesting to me. What is the most difficult about producing? What's the hardest task?
You never know. You never know the nature of the thing that you're going to have to deal with. Sometimes it's people problems. Sometimes it's technical problems. You have to be able to think nimbly. You have to be able to wear different hats, and you never know what day you're going to have to wear what hat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think and maybe this is a lesson for life. if you can modulate yourself emotionally, to where you can control, you don't go too far left or right when bad things happen or challenges happen. You can be the better version of the producer you want to be. At least I think. Um, because you never know. If you could go in and predict what a problem is going to be on a given day or what a challenge is going to be a perfect job, but you can't.
But also, it might be boring.
Boring isn't bad. Sometimes boring would be nice. Boring, a predictably quiet, boring day. Oh my God, that would be a godsend.
Yeah, I think I chose retail on purpose because I don't want to have boring life.
There you go. I was there for a while.
All right. So I think everyone is really interested in asking you some questions about Killadelphia, which is perfect because it's an amazing series. Preston would like to know, where did the idea for Killadelphia come from? That's a good question.
A couple places, couple entry points. I think probably the most personal, the Sangster story, came from my relationship with my father, which was a challenging one. And when he passed away, I remember thinking, if we'd had more time, would we have been able to patch up our differences? And then I remember thinking that, problem solving isn't about time, but time helps. Sometimes time and wisdom and age can give perspectives. And then I thought about, well, if you put that into a genre space, what place gives you all the time in the world? Well, vampires. And so that was sort of the foundation of the beginning embers of a father-son dynamic for Killadelphia. I think the John Adams part came from the play Hamilton. I remember when the king in Hamilton, spoiler alert, comes out and he's talking about John Adams and he's laughing. And I remember thinking, if John Adams was in the audience, how would he feel about all of these other characters, from the founding fathers sort of being portrayed and not him? And in fact, he's being laughed at. How could he be in the audience since that happened hundreds of years ago? If he were a vampire. And then the whole idea of it, vampires are always felt left a lot on the playing field because all they really did was search for blood. It was like all of this cool, like they find a place to go wherever the sexy vampire place is to get leather, or they learn karate, or, they do all of this stuff really, and they're only really searching for blood. And they stay in the coffin for hundreds of years to come out to get more blood. And it's like, wow, this is really sort of it's like a waste in a way, and what if you could add some other stuff? And so I started thinking about how in psychology, in therapy, they talk a lot of times about an inner child and how a lot of childhood trauma walks with us through life as we become adults. And I was thinking, what if human trauma walked with us when we became vampires? Like we couldn't shed that idea of ourselves, even in immortality. Like we have power, we have perspective, seemingly perfection, almost like if you were poor at one point and you get money and you get everything you thought would make you happy, but you still are haunted by the person that you were, and the fears and insecurities and all of those things. I sort of took that idea and put it on vampires. And then when you were in the coffin, I sort of used the coffin and the body as a prison and gave your soul some purpose. Like your soul could move through spiritual realms and sort of be free while your body was enslaved. And when you were walking the earth, you were sort of this tragic figure, confined to it. And Anne Rice deals with some of that stuff as well. Like, it's cool to be a vampire for the first 100 years. And then you start going a little nuts after a while. And, I lose human relationships. So it's not completely new. But I wanted to just add some elements of psychology and self-help books and all of that stuff to it. So It came from a lot of different entry points, but a lot of it really through humanizing vampires, more so than just playing off the idea of they're scary and they have fangs and they bite you.
I think that's just for me as a comic book reader and fan of the medium. I often explain to people, I'm like, I don't care if your book is science fiction or Western or, superhero or whatever. If you don't write a dynamic character in there that I can actually care about, even if I despise them, if there's something emotional in there that's a selling point for me, then I'll stick with you forever. If the point of your book is to get to the next battle or to the next, vampire butt kicking, then I probably can't stick around because I need to have an emotional with somebody.
Yeah. I try to give you a lot of somebodies. I try to make everybody a somebody.
Yeah, it definitely happens in all of your books. It's like Nita Blah's nightmare blog.
Yes.
Did you do it as like a
it's meant to be a limerick like that. It's meant
good.
to be difficult. So it's meant to be that. But yeah.
But it's just, of all of those are just brilliant. All right. I'm sure everyone wants to talk about what we're here to talk about right now that is coming out, because we're on top of it, right? It's just, is it tomorrow?
Yeah. Tomorrow.
We're talking about Blacula, which just super nostalgic. So good. Okay. So am I wrong to say that Blacula was only the film before this?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I mean, the MGM film Blacula and Blacula Scream, to my knowledge, I don't know of another comic. I'm sure people played with the idea of doing a Blacula, like inspired other characters around the world of, other comics. But for me, I had a unique relationship when I was a kid. Once my parents broke up, there was a period where my mother was looking for a stepfather for me. It was like, this kid needs a father. So when she would go on dates, she would take me with her and be like, I sort of kind of got to pick the date in a weird way. And which I'm sure
like
was
the person or the venue?
No, to wherever they were going.
Oh, okay.
Wherever they were going. And 9 out of 10 times it was the movies, unless I didn't like the guy. And then I would pick someplace I knew, like, a dinner where I had to sit at the table, which no guy wants to sit at the table with a kid. And so I remember seeing, it was very different than what trailers are today, but a trailer for the movie Blacula. And back then, movies would keep coming back. It was weird. It wasn't like today. They would return. I don't think this was the first run of Blacula. And it was almost like this is what the theater is showing right now, more so than this is the first release of Black, because I'm not that old. And I wanted to see Blacula. And they found it in, this guy. He found it in Baltimore. And up until that point, I'd really only I'd loved monster movies and monster TV shows. People have heard me say before my love of Kolchak the Night Stalker and the Salem's Lot miniseries and, stuff like that. And I really loved the Universal movies, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, The Mummy, all of those, Wolfman, all that stuff. And the Hammer movies, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, those things. But I very rarely saw Black people unless we popped up and was like, he went that way. But we were never really part of the narrative, in any substantive way. And so I think that was what I wanted for Blacula. Like, he's the dude. Like, even though it's kind of silly for his name because he's Black, like Blacula, although it sounds like Dracula. So I get it from a marketing place. Mm-hmm. But we go to this movie theater. And it's that experience that stereotypically goes with certain movies where the people were talking to the movie theater. Like, it was the most interactive movie I'd ever gone to.
Really?
And I mean, people were throwing stuff at the screen. It was like, it was the most fun I'd ever had in a movie. Like, we were all connected as an audience every time Blacula became Blacula, like his afro would get bigger, and when he became feral, his sideburns would get bigger. I think his lapels got bigger as he would go in for the show. And it was just really, really cool and really, really fun. And over the years, because of that sentiment, I would continue to revisit Blacula and blaxploitation movies in general. But then I would see some of the problematic stuff, politically, within the narrative, blah, blah, blah. But there was an idea in Blacula I thought was really, really cool. And it was in the opening. And it was when Prince Mamuwalde went to Count Dracula, who was like a political figure in Transylvania, to see if he could get help to stop the slave trade. And Dracula turns on him for some reason. It's just like immediately no, and I'm going to not only not help you, but make you a vampire and kill your wife. We still don't have any explanation behind that, except that, we need to get out of this cold open really, really quickly. And Dracula's not a good guy. But there was something in that idea I was always intrigued by. And I thought made for a good story if we were to revisit that part of the story, acknowledging the rest of the movie, but specifically that part. And so I went about really tackling that. And over the years, typically, like a lot of things like Killadelphia, they aren't just born overnight. That when we started with those inspiring thoughts, they take a while to sort of, grow and evolve. And this was that as well. And so once I got to a place where I was really comfortable with the idea, I was working on a screenplay for Michael B. Jordan's company, a monster movie, and Alana Mayo was running his company at the time. And when she left his company and she moved to a movie studio, I told her about my desires to work on Blacula, and she helped me get the rights, the literary rights, to be able to make the book, and really cut through a lot of red tape. And it was a lot easier than I think it would have been if I was just a guy off the street saying this was something I want to do and just knocking on the door. And so, between her and Carol Mora, who works there in their literary department, working on the comic book division, who also worked with Dynamite when I worked on Army of Darkness, really made the transition like it was the most seamless, comfortable environment working on the book as well. And then it came time to look for an artist. Who could I do this with? Because it was the first book for my company, I decided to do it under my imprint, Zombie Love Studios. And then Jason Sean Alexander came to mind. And
really
at first it was a question as to whether or not, because we do Killadelphia together, whether or not it would be too close to the look of Killadelphia, and people would think, oh, this is just Killadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's some of his best work because it's all his work. He does the coloring, he does everything, inking,
wow.
He does all the line work and everything. And so it's really inspired. And I think the conversations that we had going into it about really making it feel more like one of those Hammer films and making it feel like a Hammer film meets a blaxploitation film if they both had a child that was born today. This is what we're trying to make. He really, in my opinion, did a great job bringing that to light. And every time the pages would come in, because he sent me art today from Killadelphia 29, and it's just beautiful stuff. And so, he hopped on, and we decided to go on another journey together, and I think it's a pretty good book.
So the book itself, is it graphic novel? It's
a whole graphic novel. It's a whole story. It's volume 1. It's the whole thing. You get the whole first story. I hope to do 3 of them.
Nice.
I leave on an idea for the second one, and I hope to, in volume 2, if all goes well, bring back another 70s favorite to add to Blacula. and sort of create this nostalgic thing because I've never really grown past the 70s. I don't know why. And, to continue to, something you said like a moment ago about why we do comics, why we're in this business, why we commit an aspect of our lives to this is really because we love it and we enjoy it. And so why not have fun with it and hopefully open new pathways and doors to a new generation who may not be familiar with the character of Blacula and that world.
So you mentioned that this is the first book under your own imprint. Do you have another in the works that you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the next book, Florence and Normandy, I did with the actor rapper Exhibit. That's a science fiction alien attack story that happens that breaks out on the corner of Florence and Normandy in South Los Angeles area. That should be dropping in the summer, and then I have a ghost story in the fall. And trying to do like 3 books a year, but you'll see that they're all sort of like prestige books that you put. They're not like floppies. They're the types of books that hopefully you want to put on a bookshelf.
Yeah.
Like they're fully realized and they're fully developed and all of that.
I do see that there's kind of a trend in my customer desires for that style book. So I think it's a good decision. Yeah.
Thank you.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, that's the thing. There's so many floppies that come out, and that's a regular thing that I just wanted to, again, it's something I like. I like those books. And since I collect books, that's sort of a thing that I go after. So, yeah.
Preston's shooting for the fences here, saying, I hope you can bring Pam Grier to the comics. Maybe Foxy Brown meets Blacula.
Man, Foxy Brown, I think all of those. There's Foxy Brown, there's Shaft. There's so many blaxploitation characters that I think would fit in a well-told story that I'd love to see that come to pass.
That would be so awesome. So where's the right place for people to follow you to keep up with all of these amazing projects?
Yeah, you can find me at the Rodney Barnes on Instagram and Twitter. You can get the Blacula book on Amazon or your local comic shop. And it's available now, I believe, or now tomorrow, either today or tomorrow, one of the two. And I know some people have gotten them already, even though it said tomorrow. And at the Rodney Barnes, you can find me.
That's perfect. So you guys that are interested in these books that are coming out, you can always just connect with your local comic shop and just say you'd like to have everything that's coming out of the new production house so you don't miss it at all. Or you can, if your LCS does things like pull everything that Rodney Barnes makes, it's probably a smart thing to do because all of them are amazing. Do that. Don't hesitate. Just do it right now. That's what you want to do. Let's start a GoFundMe. Vampire Hunter Shaft.
He would be bad. He's a bad man. So yeah,
all the fans are writing it out for you right now.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barnes. I appreciate you. I know that your time is valuable and we appreciate it more than you know. Thank you so much.
Until next time.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time for Talkin Shop. Thank you so much.
All right.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.